So here we are, the dig has actually finished. We're a day later than we expected to be because we have had some amazing finds in Trench 1 that has meant that we've had to carry on for another half a day or more. The sun's out and I have 4 wonderful people here with us. So if you'd like to introduce yourself as we go on down. So the far side you have the mic. Ben, it's up to you.
It is indeed. I'm Ben, community archaeologist and site director with Dig Ventures. Myself and Anna were part of the Dig Ventures team alongside Harriet, who came along to make the dig happen on behalf of the Quantox partnership scheme.
Okay.
I'm Ant. I'm a commercial archaeologist. I've been involved with the Quantox Landscape Partnership Scheme for quite a while, helping out as a volunteer, and I got the opportunity to be here for the full programme.
I'm Dan. I'm Historic Heritage Officer for the Landscape Partnership Scheme, and this dig is part of our wider programme of community archaeology as part of our wider work.
I'm Anna.
Hi, Anna.
As Ben alluded to, I'm a community archaeologist with Dig Ventures as well. Happy to be down here.
Excellent. So we'll pass it back to Ben. So Ben, when did you first hear about the dig that was going to happen here?
I'd say it was about the beginning of the year, roughly,
Okay.
when I found out that I would be, kind of coming down to site. I knew that there was going to be some exciting geophysics done.
Yeah.
I knew there'd been some aerial photography done in advance of that many years ago, but I had no idea quite how incredible the archaeology from all of that would become.
Yeah.
It's been
And so
very
you had
special.
the geophysics done as part of your team then, was it?
The geophysics was done in advance before we came.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And Dan, next question for you. So when did you, because I guess you're the person that decided this was going to be the field,
Yeah.
the final dig for the Quantox Landscape Partnership Scheme was going to be. Why here? Why not somewhere else?
So one of the main sort of remits of the work for the Quantox Landscape Partnership Scheme, the archaeology work, was to investigate crop marks. So we did that a bit last year with the huge potential henge at Broomfield. Looking for a site to do this year's dig, went back to looking at the historic environment record and came across this field which had 3 crop marks, appeared to have 3 crop marks in it, and also it turned out it had a very friendly landowner, which was another big plus. So that's why we went for this site, and then when we had the geophysics done as well, it became obvious that there was huge potential here. The other thing that was a real key consideration was the site's proximity to Stonehenge Barton, which, as you know, is just about 500 yards that way, and that was excavated, I think, the year 2000, and they had some burials that were dated to the 7th century, along with some Roman remains. So there was always the potential that there might be something similar going on here.
Okay, and so the geophysics was done. Your first thoughts or your first reaction when you saw the geophysics results?
My first thoughts, I think it's kind of just confirmed the fact that there was huge potential here. That it was definitely a site worth pursuing. But we kind of made a good decision.
Okay. So Anna, next question. So this will be an easy one. So when did you first become involved with this? When was the first time that you knew you were coming to Somerset to do this dig?
I think it would have been March of this year. I'm not exactly sure when we had our first meeting, and so I saw the geophysics and was told that I was going to get to be one of the community archaeologists.
Okay.
So yeah.
And it's a lovely place to come as well.
It's a beautiful
amazing.
place.
What a place to have your office for 2 weeks.
Definitely.
Stunning.
I feel lucky.
Yeah. Right. So there's one person we haven't spoken to yet, and that's Ant. So Ant, when did you see the geophysics first?
Couple of weeks before we started the project, to be honest.
Okay.
Do you know
And
about the site before?
I
We talked about it or not?
I knew a bit about the site, having talked with Dan a couple of times about it, and potential what options there were for the next dig, and he did mention this one.
Okay, good. And your first thoughts on the geophysics?
My first thoughts on it was there was a very large ring ditch which looked very interesting.
Yeah.
And it was a bit big to be the Barrow ? That it was already identified as.
And I think that was all the way from the very beginning. Was it a barrow? Is it going to be a henge? Is it just a ring ditch? And I think that story evolved as the couple of weeks went on, I think. Although, Dan, you were hoping that it was going to be a henge, didn't you, from the beginning? Or
I think we said at the start, didn't we, that it had been, interpreted from the aerial photos as a possible ring ditch of a barrow. And we said that if it is that makes it huge in this landscape, given how many barrows there are on the Quantocks. It would be so much bigger. So I think there was always a question mark over that. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we all rocked up on site just over 2 weeks or so ago now, just over 2 weeks ago.
It's a bit
It
of a blur,
seems
isn't it?
almost,
Well,
almost
2.5 weeks.
yeah, yeah. And the first thing that we did, the digger came in, scraped everything back, and so then we knew exactly what we were looking at. Ben, so as soon as we scraped back the soil, the topsoil, was there anything that jumped out at you?
We could see roughly broadly where the big ring ditch feature was, and we could see that in both trenches, trench 1 and 4. In trench 3 down the slope, we could see 2 edges of a very, very large feature, and in trench 2 it was a bit difficult to see anything at that point, but yeah, as soon as we'd scraped back, we could see some of the larger features on site, but a lot of the smaller ones that don't necessarily show up on a geophysics and don't necessarily show up until the trenches have been cleaned. They didn't appear to us until we'd a couple of days into the dig and started cleaning up.
Okay. So Anna, so I'm going to start talking about different trenches now as we go through it. But first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the amount of work and effort that the volunteers have done over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just Chris, who's still here somewhere. I mean, he's been here every single day. The poor guy is a broken
The mannequin
man.
hand.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. I mean, he has just done such a sterling job. But I mean, it's the same for everyone. All of the
Yeah, absolutely.
community
We couldn't do it
archaeologists
without them.
No.
I mean, they're the reason we're here to begin with, and they've done an incredible job. Really, really dedicated group of people. Really happy to be here. It makes it all really fun, and we've done some amazing archaeology as well.
And do you find that the difference between community archaeology and what do they call it, professional or what's
Commercial?
Commercial archaeology, yeah. There must be a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Definitely.
So instead of getting your head down, you can have a bit of a chat. Okay, so we had all the community archaeologists, the community diggers on site. Which was the first trench that you were working on then?
I had the pleasure of working in Trench 2. As Ben said, it was a little bit difficult to see things in. So we troweled it back and had a look, and still a bit difficult to see things in. So we troweled it back again. Then we took a mattock to it. Still difficult to see things. And then we found a land drain, and that was
Okay.
Trench 2, a modern land drain. So
Okay.
it's really...
Impressive.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
it's a feature.
It is a feature, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had sort of, I mean, well, you tell me. I mean, was there, when we saw this D shape, or this, it was almost like a D shape feature appear, was it something that filled you with excitement, or did you think, oh, okay, this is going to be, we'll see where we go?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was something. I still think there might still be
Yeah,
something there.
something.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is that it's a very faint mark. So as we've discussed at points, it's either something very ephemeral, and we're not seeing it in the trench because it's just not big enough to survive, or it's potentially because it's at the bottom of a slope in a water-created glacial valley. There's going to be a lot of colluvium, i.e. ground wash or soil washed down onto it, which means it's potentially actually significantly deeper. And it may actually turn out that if we were to take a machine deeper, we may actually find quite a substantive feature because it shows up very clearly as a crop mark compared to the more natural formations which are also on the geophysics down in that area.
But we decided in the end that we wouldn't do that for the very valid reason that the field drain still looked very active.
Yeah.
And yes, flooding the field might not have been the best idea in the world. So
Okay.
we stuck at field drain level.
Excellent. And so that one closed down within 4 or 5 days, I think, of starting, and we were happy that one was finished. So we'll move around to Trench 3 now. So Trench 3 was a very clear crescent shape that we had down the hill just behind us down here. A little bit more exciting is probably the wrong word, but there was a little bit more
Enigmatic.
Okay. Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on a geophysics. We had this crescent-shaped, banana-shaped, boomerang-shaped. This had all sorts of descriptions given to it over the course of the dig. Anomaly come up on the survey, just on the slope of the field down behind us. It took us a while to kind of get to grips with what on earth we might be dealing with. It was a very unusual shape. But after a bit of detective work, we saw from some aerial photographs that actually there's been an old ancient river channel, an old paleo channel, very close to the foot of where Trench 3 is. So our attention then started to turn to, is this perhaps some sort of utilisation along the ancient riverbank? So yeah, the trench was really then moved into trying to get down into that feature, retrieve artifacts and finds things that might tell us what it is, and also get an idea of what it might have been used for based on its shape in the ground and what we get out of it.
Okay, and we had some, well, certainly one amazing find in there, and perhaps you can tell us about the arrowhead.
Yeah, so one of the finds that we actually had out of the feature in Trench 3 was a leaf-shaped arrowhead. It's early Neolithic, so we're talking somewhere in the region of 6,000 years ago, somewhere around 4,000 BC. It was a pressure plate arrowhead. It's probably been used due to the break on the tip and the way the tip was broken, so it's probably been fired at something. Whether it actually hit or missed remains never to be found out, unfortunately. But it was a very finely pressure plate arrowhead, which is quite interesting in its own right because the Quantocks are not renowned for having knappable stone. So it's material that has been brought in. I mean, the nearest flint deposits, which it seemed to be a flint rather than a chert, is probably the Dorset coast. And then if it was a chert, then the nearest deposits are probably round Chard area and the Black Downs. So it's been brought in quite a distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So Anna is the next question. So what do you think it is then? You've probably spent more time in there than the rest of us. So what do you think it is? What's your gut feeling?
I don't have a really strong gut feeling, but I think, Ben's theory of some sort of enclosure, maybe driving animals towards the water or keeping them there, seems logical to me. But yeah, I think we would have to look at more of it and look at the bottom of it, see what we find in it to really find out.
Okay, all right, so it's another enigmatic one that
Yes.
is yet to be solved. Okay, so then that leaves us with Trench 1 and Trench 4. So I'm going to talk about them together. So even though they're completely separate trenches, they're all part of the 35 metre ring ditch that circles where we're sat here all the way around. It's a big old ditch. Ant, you've dug the darn thing.
Yep,
Good.
it's definitely a big old ditch. From topsoil, it's approximately 2 metres to the base of the ditch. So we're talking about 1.7 metres of archaeological stratigraphy because the site's been ploughed quite heavily. We've lost that top bit from the topsoil, so we're talking somewhere in 1.7, 1.6 metres of archaeological stratigraphy. The upper fields had quite a lot of residual material, so material that's kicking around in the landscape and been dragged in by the plough. And then we started getting Roman or deposits with Roman material in, which looks like it's more in keeping with the period. And then we got down to the basal fills. I'm going to let Ben talk about the basal fill in Trench 1 because it's very interesting. But the basal fills in Trench 4, it's basically been heavily maintained. It's been kept clean. There's not material in there building up over time as it's in use. It's been kept clean during use and then it goes out of use and starts filling up, which might also be indicative of some of the stuff in Trench 1 Ben's going to talk about, where it's being closed down and then going out of use.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about that yet. We're going to leave that till the very end because that's what we've been working on. So there were some other things that we found in both trenches 1 and 4 that came as a bit of a surprise.
Yes, absolutely. So, as I was saying earlier, how when we first opened the trenches, we didn't necessarily get to see all of the features in the ground. It wasn't until we'd cleaned the trenches up, actually we started seeing a number of very interesting looking shapes appearing, some rectangles in the ground, all parallel, laid out next to each other, and all aligned east-west. And when archaeologists see that in the ground, there's only one thing that tends to come to mind, and that is burials.
Yeah. And so at that point, social media, we sort of started to crank it down a little bit, and we didn't mention the graves. In fact, we haven't still really mentioned the graves on social media at all. Why is that? Why didn't we? Why, it's an amazing thing we're finding. Why not just tell everyone straight away?
Yes, well, there's a couple of dimensions to it. First of all, they are human remains, and we do obviously want to try and treat them with their dignity and respect they deserve. But also because we know, we could see that they're east-west, we could see that they're quite early. There's a good chance that they could have been early medieval graves with grave goods in them, and so we didn't want to attract kind of undue attention to them too soon. Just to make sure the site was kept safe and secure whilst we were here,
Yeah.
and free from any sort of undue thieving hands.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing that and Ant. So Ant's going to answer this next question. Now we've asked Ant before about why there are no bones here, and he's got this long speech that goes on, and I have no idea what he's talking about. So Ant, in simple terms, we found no bones here. We found no teeth here. Some burnt maybe later, but why is that? Why isn't there anything here?
Basically, it's due to the soil chemistry
Okay.
and how bones are made. So bones are composed of two components, which are collagen and calcium. And in the current soil chemistry, basically the collagen content will dissolve because it's very acidic, and then the calcium, because it's a mineral that is needed in the surrounding soil because there is no calcium here, and plants use it, basically leaches away. So you just effectively dissolve.
Okay. So and there's absolutely nothing
Yeah.
at all found here at all, but we have found some things in the graves.
Yes, whilst working in Trench for one of the points, we were excavating away, and Siobhan, who was one of the volunteers, found a metal object, which is one of the reasons why we confirmed that they were graves, because there's always this question. Yes, they look like graves, but there's no human remains in them. Are they graves? Are they something else going on? Is there some weird Civil War type defences to do with Cromwell or something like that? But in one of the graves, Siobhan found the first grave good, which was a small Anglo-Saxon or early medieval, probably Anglo-Saxon eating knife in an east-west line grave. So it's probably at that interface of Christianity coming into the country and replacing paganism within the Anglo-Saxon cultures. Then Denise, a couple of days later, found some more metal artefacts in a grave, which included probably a second eating knife, what looks to be a seax, which is an Anglo-Saxon knife. It's slightly longer. The larger ones are used as fighting knives, but they had shorter ones which were more domestic, and what looks to be a shroud pin, which confirms that kind of, you're on the edge of paganism, start of Christianity. So there's some grave goods, but they're also following the East-West Christian burial practices, which is very interesting when you then go 500 metres away to Stonehenge Barton, which has 6th, 7th century burials, which these would be of a similar or possibly slightly earlier
Yeah.
date.
Okay. So we were due to wrap up yesterday. That didn't happen. Why didn't that happen, Ben?
So, it wasn't yesterday, was it the afternoon before, so the day before yesterday? We were pretty close. We were thinking to getting towards the bottom of the ditch in Trench 1. Everything, oh, brilliant, we've got plenty of time on our hands to finish up, it's all going to be great. But lo and behold, the
Yeah.
usual end of dig curse gets to us, and we find the most amazing object right at the end.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I saw it, somebody called me over to look at it, and it was I swore, I literally swore, it
did.
was so stunning to see this, what you're just about to describe to us, in the bottom of this ring ditch. It was just, explain away what we found.
Well, so what it looks like we've got at the bottom of the ditch, sitting just on the base, just above the base, are up to 4 possibly prehistoric intact, almost complete ceramic vessels just sitting right on the bottom of the ditch itself. Amazing discoveries. They're surviving in various levels of completion, in the sense of some of them have collapsed over, some of them look more intact, others are slightly fragmentary, but they're quite clearly placed along intentionally on the bottom of the ditch. The bases on a number of them are upright on the bottom. So really fascinating to find that. What were they doing there? Why were they put there? Who put them there? And when? We've got a huge amount of questions about them, a lot of which is going to come out in our post-excavation work.
And even the ground that they were sat on was different as well to what we'd seen in the other.
Yes,
the other end of it.
yes. So the ditch in Trench 1 has a lot of different material in it compared to the one in Trench 4. As Ant was saying earlier, the one in Trench 4 has probably been quite regularly cleaned out, which in itself is quite interesting. But the one in Trench 4 seems to have been used perhaps for different purposes. It's filled up with a series of what looks like dumping, lots of ashes and burning, and then some silting, and then a series of that. So it has been used for different sort of functions at different times between the two areas.
So one of the things that there was a big question mark over was, is it a barrow? Is it a henge? What is it?
From the evidence that we've got, it looks most likely that it's a henge, and the reason why we're saying that is we've got a very big deep ditch, which could still be a barrow. You do get deep ditches around barrows, it's just not that common. As we've already said, it's very big area for a barrow, especially on the Quantox. Most of the Quantox barrows are actually quite small, they're 10-15 metres across, which is much more standard anyway for the Bronze Age. But in Trench 4, because most of the excavation area was actually outside the ditch, we've actually got evidence of the remains of the bank within the trench visible.
And this is this very thin line
Yeah.
of stones.
Yeah, it's a kind of visible in Trench 1 as well, but it's not as visible because of the location of the trench. So we've got evidence of a bank outside the ditch, and within British archaeology, pretty much the only monuments you have with a bank outside the ditch are henges.
And so that's it. We have finished the final Quantock Landscape Partnership Scheme dig. There's been 4. Dan, you can talk about this. So it's been quite a dig. What a way for it to finish.
I think it's been a great dig, hasn't it? I think it's been the best that we've done in terms of the archaeology, in terms of what's been found. I would have been very happy with a henge. I'd have been very happy with a Dark Age cemetery. To have both in the same trenches with all this sort of Roman material in between as well. It's been astonishing. I think, aside from the archaeology, I think from a volunteer's point of view, it's given them some really challenging archaeology to work with. I think the training that they've been provided by Dig Ventures has been really great. It's been great that they've had opportunities to do a lot more recording of features than they've done before. So yeah, all around, I think it's been a really great dig.
So Anna, your thoughts on the last day as we start to pack up.
I've had a great day.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah. So because it's the final day plus one, there was less teaching and more doing for me, which is a little bit of a treat for me at the end to get to do some of the actual troweling, some of the lifting of the pots. So that was really, really nice. As much as I love teaching, you often want to sort of just get in there and do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely right. Perfect. All right. And your last thoughts on what's happened over the last couple of weeks.
It's been a really good, fun project. It's really great to see how far the Quantock Landscape Partnership team volunteers have come on from the very first project up at the top of Coffelstone, which I was involved with, to this one. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do something further in the future.
Ben.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's all about the people, really, the community. The archaeology has been also fantastic, so having those two elements together, it just makes for a wonderful experience for us as well as for the volunteers. Often you turn up to site and yes, you might have geophysics, you might have aerial photography, but you never really know what you're going to find. This time we've had an incredible experience with what we found, but sharing that with the volunteers is kind of what it's really about. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, no, excellent. Well, thank you all for spending the time to sit and chat to us. So from me and from all of us really, thank you very much for watching everything that's been going on here. Until the next time, we will see you then. Thank you all, everyone. Well done.